Hey gamers, it's Patrick and Jason, and we are here for a special video that is kind of hitting close to home for both of us.
This is hitting so close to home.
There was a recent Kickstarter announcement for two new games, Armed Fantasia and Penny Blood, and they are actually basically spiritual successors to the Wild Arms and what's the other one? Shadow Hearts series?
Shadow Heart. So funny story. Casey texted me. I think it was Friday of a week and a half ago
Mm.
about this, and I had heard of it like 10 minutes before he texted me, and I was like, "Did you hear that giant orgasm from
Oh
the
my
south?
god.
Did you do you the 7.0 earthquake that just happened in Indiana? That was me, because two of my favorite series, not one, but two of my favorite series are getting spiritual successors. And
Spiritually
that is,
rebooted.
yeah. And if you want to know more about what a spiritual successor is, you can go back to episode
Oh, look at that plug.
233 of season 1, where we talked about them.
Yeah, that's true. We have more to talk about now.
Yeah.
I have not seen these trailers, so we're gonna watch them here in a second. But I'm a little familiar with spiritual successors and Kickstarters, especially for my favorite game, because one of the biggest ones a while back was Keiji Inafune's Mighty Number Nine for Mega Man, which I was super excited
Mighty
about.
number
And
flop.
yeah, we all know how that turned out. It could have been a lot better. So I'm hoping that this is okay. So we'll see.
Yeah, so basically, for those of you who don't know, Wild Arms is just a Western influenced RPG. It came out in the 90s, and it had about 5 sequels and a
Hmm.
Tactics game spin off. And then the series just kind of disappeared, which is sad because I think, like, they had moderate JRPG success. Like, they were reasonably successful RPGs that had some good puzzle elements. Characterization was good, nothing crazy unique, but just like solid. And
Yeah,
then
I mean,
you had
unique-ish setting. Like it was cool. Like to clarify, it's a Wild Western RPG. It's not like a Western RPG, not like a Mass
right,
Effect.
yes,
But
not
yeah,
Western in
it
the
had
sense
it
of
had
where it
its
was
own
designed.
style throughout the entire course of its franchise.
And that was a pretty big selling point because that was something that you didn't see at all. You wouldn't think of splicing the Wild West and RPGs together.
Yeah,
So that
turn-based
was pretty
battles. Yeah.
cool. And some of them go a little heavier on the West than the other ones do. Like, I think starting with Wild Arms 3 and then Wild
Three is
Arms
very Western.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah, very Western. The other 1 and 2 more so in the tone than in the actual design. And then 4
Hmm.
not so much at all. But
Yeah, isn't four like a futuristic thing?
4, I mean, like, it's more just like post-apocalyptic, but the music is still very Western, so it's
I
still
see.
kind of there. And then
Got
you
it.
have Shadow Hearts, which is another reasonably successful RPG series. It actually started as a game called Kudelka on the
Mm.
PS1, and not a lot of people know that there's a connection between Shadow Hearts and Kudelka, but if you're a diehard like me, you saw that connection. And that was another one that started out in the 90s, probably late 90s. And
Yeah.
then what was cool about it is it was a more of a gothic modern take on an RPG. So it was
Hmm.
a lot more closely related to our timeline. And it was also a lot of like dark demon influence. So it was cool seeing this almost Buffy the Vampire Slayer esque society where like demons are running rampant or historical events are happening because of the influence of dark things, just like
Yeah.
dark deeds done behind the scenes. I think that was really cool. Which I know you never really got to play that, right, Jason?
No, I never really did. I mean, like no one played Kudelka because it was hella hard to find and expensive. It's
And
so
not
like
not that great. Like
yeah,
Kudelka is not that
exactly,
great. I think for what
exactly.
it tries to do, like Kudelka was very Resident Evil until you got in battles, and then it was kind of like a tactics clunky thing.
Hmm.
So it accomplished some things well, but some things, just they weren't there yet. And then Shadow
Yeah,
Hearts
that's a good
tried
way
to
to put
push
it.
that a lot further and be more approachable. But like it was kind of cool because, well, we'll talk about it when we get there. Let's
Yeah,
get into these
yeah.
trailers because I want to see like what they're doing and how these stack up. So
Okay. Okay, I've never seen this.
Okay, so this is
first
kind of what
live
we were
watch.
talking about like the Western
Yeah, this
scene.
immediately looks like Wild Arms 3.
Yeah, very much so.
I like the whistling. Takes me
Also
back.
very Wild Arms.
Oh, I'm getting a little
So
Xenoblade Chronicles vibe. Yeah.
this guy right here
Mm.
is the most Wild Arms character that I have ever seen. Like if you were
That
to say
hairstyle, the
describe,
jacket. Yeah.
yeah,
If
like
I had to, if
describe
I
a
had to
Wild Arms
describe
protagonist.
exactly, it would be way too much clothes for the setting that they're in, and that's exactly what he has on.
So one of the reasons it's called arms is because that's usually
Mm.
like referring to the guns
The gun.
in
It's
the
like it's an
games.
abbreviation. Is that right? It's like
It's
ARMs.
different in every game.
Oh, got it.
So like
Nice.
arms is the group in
Hmm.
the second game, but arms are the guns and like a lot of the other ones. So,
Yeah.
but this guy looks like a character from each of the games. Not necessarily the main character, but at least a character from each
Yeah.
of them. Ingram.
Ingram. Euclid. Oh, nice. He must be a tactician.
Let's go back here too. So
Alicia.
Euclid looks
Euclid
like
Sturgis.
other Wild Arms characters as well. Like you played Wild Arms 3, so he
Yeah.
reminds me of Clive.
Clive. Yep.
He
That's
was
what
the
I
guy
thought
with
too. Oh, I
the
loved
sniper
Clive.
rifle. Yeah, I figured that was probably your favorite character in the game.
How did you know? Yeah.
Because it's you as a character.
Exactly.
He just has that kind of vibe of like the more serious one. I mean, I know that's basically a trope in a lot of RPGs or anime and stuff like that, where you have that more like stoic character who's the wise one.
I mean, he's a realist and a romanticist. Like
that's the vibe
what
I get from him.
Yeah.
And then
Alicia.
this is kind of a thing. So Wild Arms 5 has a female who needs help, and she has a sword. And I feel like that's kind of what's going on here.
Got it.
I question
just
the
like
last
the
name Fairhead, but
Fairhead is a little bit weird. I agree. The like front facing, like here's the design of this character, also reminds me of Wild Arms 3, which is also Virginia. The main character is a female character.
I don't get vibes of Virginia from this.
I don't get vibes from her either. It's the art style. Like I see where it's coming from.
Virginia's probably my favorite character in that game.
She's pretty cool. She also wears too much clothes for how hot it is.
But at least she like looks like she fits. This is definitely a lot more anime influence for sure.
Yeah,
Virginia's
this
still
is like
wearing
Fire Emblem looking.
Western dress. Yeah, this is a lot more Fire Emblem-y.
I wonder if that's a game mode or something.
Or if he's a robot.
Yeah.
So there are like 3 characters.
Yeah, maybe it's a 3-person team. Yeah, that guy's from Yu-Gi-Oh.
Cool. He's from Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay,
oh,
let's
nice.
pause
Look
for
at
a
that
second.
screen. Yeah.
So we have a force gauge. We have a force gauge, which is
force gauge level 2. Yeah.
Familiar in Wild Arms games. I feel like you always have these like special abilities that you can do as you build up this force gauge as you play.
And you usually build them up collectively, right? And then one person can use it. Is that what I'm remembering?
It depends. In some
I guess
of
it
the
depends.
games,
Yeah.
It's separate. In some of the games, it's all one force gauge. So that is, I think it just kind of depends. And then it looks like we have a very similar turn order to Final Fantasy X. I feel like 10 is kind of the one that revolutionized that. And then on the right here, one thing that's kind of interesting is I think they're back to SP for Wild Arms.
Yeah,
so
SP.
Usually what happens starting maybe Wild Arms 2 is you don't actually use like SP or magic points to use your abilities. You just need like a bare minimum of your force points, and that never actually decreases unless you're using a special force ability.
A special move, yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting take to go back to.
Yeah, I wonder what it'll be. That's cool. I mean, we've managed Gauge before. Rip. Order chain. Oh, because they were all in order. Oh, even the text color of the attack was like a Wild Arms logo. A little limit break idea here. So definitely a little techie vibe.
Yeah, so that was cool. I think I know this is the earliest build of the game possible, but I think that looked promising.
This is the Get Hype trailer, and I feel like that you could get hype for that. And I'm all about turn-based RPGs, so I definitely go into that. And FF10, like you said, was a good example for what it showed. And that's if they're basing something at even the slightest off of that, I think it's a good move.
Yeah, and I like special moves that aren't too far over the top. I felt like that was a pretty good like happy medium where,
Yeah.
if a game
I
just
don't want him
gets
to be
so
like summoning in a cavalry of soldiers on horseback that shoot the boss out of nowhere. That would be a little weird.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it seems like in the context of a character.
Yeah, it does. It seems like it fits. I wonder if it's going to be open world, if that's what they're implying by the big open running.
I doubt it.
I don't know. It's like the trend nowadays, though. I mean, like, look at that. I mean, like, I wonder.
I just doubt it. I feel like that
It's not
they
the
would need a
series, that's
bigger
for sure.
team. All right, let's talk about this
Nice.
for a sec. So, does this scream Wild Arms to you?
I mean, initially, yes. Like, if I went into it and didn't know that it was related to Wild Arms, I think at this point, when I see Armed up there with the colored scheme being similar to the logos from the first couple games, I'd be like, oh yeah, Wild Arms. But like, I don't know. It's not like super duper Wild Arms.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they have to pivot because even though it's people from the original team, it's not the exact same company doing it, so they kind of have to make their own version, kind of like Bloodstained and Castlevania. It's,
oh yeah, good example.
It's
like you know what it is when you're getting into it. You're like, this is what I'm expecting.
One thing I'm concerned about is the more anime Wild Arms got, the worse the series got. And I know, if you know what I mean by like the more anime, just kind of like the more out there it got with its ideas, and what characters could do and whatnot. It's a little concerning when you see that because, you don't want it to just be style, you want it to be substance. And a lot of people rip on, I think even you did this, rip on Wild Arms 3 for being a slower grind. But
it is very slow.
Wild Arms 3 is the best of the storytellers because it stays humble in its story. It's not doing anything too crazy. It tries to really focus on that Wild West that's being devastated globally in terms of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
As opposed to, here's this flashy attack that these characters can do. So that was one thing that I really appreciated about that. Very excited about this.
Yeah, I am too.
Still a little hesitant.
I was going to say too, I mean, hype trailers are hype trailers. Like, they're supposed to make you do exactly what we're doing. So I would say I would want to see, like, what is the gameplay? Like, is it going to be open world? Are there more characters? Is this tied to some bigger story? Like, where are we going? What if the voice acting sucks? Like, a lot of these things that, you just don't know yet because
if
the
there
game
will
is
be voice
the game,
acting too.
right? Yeah, if there will be, because the game at this point is literally just what we just watched. There's nothing else besides ideas.
Would you, if you had to fund this game, which I mean, it's up for Kickstarter, so a lot of people are you interested enough to fund this?
If I were to fund a game, like, I would probably fund one that is in my wheelhouse of what I like, and I do like Wild Arms. And from the trailer I see things that I would enjoy, like the turn-based battles, the exploration looks pretty fun from the get-go, and it seems like this is a passion project, which is, like you mentioned, Bloodstained, which turned out really well because the team knows what they're going for. So I think if the team knows what they're making here, I probably would, and I'm sure the funding would be simple enough to get a game that you're probably going to enjoy.
So if you remember back to our Pokemon discussion when I did with Adam, we did that bonus XP about the Scarlet and Violet trailer. We kind of did this whole thing of hyper ripe. Would you say overall this is a hype or this is a ripe?
I think this is hype. I feel like it's hype, but it's hype because it's been so long. Like, if they could have just put this logo we're looking at right now on the screen and we'd be like, oh, hype, like, here comes Wild Arms. Like, that's all you really need to do. So this was kind of a gimme hype in my mind.
Yeah, this for me is a hype as well. I would say this is a soft hype just because of those anxieties that I have.
Yeah.
Like, how don't go too crazy, like let's focus a little bit more on the Armed, a little less on the Fantasia, if you will.
Yeah.
Let's go to the end of the wilderness, but not all the way to the end of the wilderness.
Let's see.
But I'm excited. Like, I'm pretty hyped for this. I'm definitely not someone who's gonna say just because it's based on something that I love, it is good, and I'm always gonna think it good. I'm very critical, but I think it has the potential.
Nostalgia goggles off. Like, yeah, it has potential. It's not like nothing is ever guaranteed, but I feel like this is a good start. Hopefully they get it right.
All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to jump on over to Penny Blood, and do
Hmm.
the exact same thing. So, Jason, are you ready to see this game?
I am. I have never played any of the Kudelka or Shadow Hearts games, so I know of them, and like I know that you like them, and I've studied up on like what they are and whatnot, but I've never played these ones.
So one of the things that makes this game really different is it introduced something called, it's the Wheel of Fate or something like that.
Oh
And a
yeah, I remember
lot,
you playing it. Yeah, and like spins. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and you have to like land it. So basically when you go to do any move, even healing items, you have to hit, like, it's kind of like a QTE. You have to hit the
yeah.
button at the right time for it to succeed. But then there's also a small area for it to be like a critical success. So it'll do more damage or heal you more, or if it's a status effect, be more likely to happen. That's one of the big
Okay.
things in the combat system for this game. That's and not even just in the combat system. Like some puzzles are solved that way, whether that's frustrating or not.
Interesting.
And then the other big thing too about this game, which I think is super cool, is the main characters have had the ability to transform into demons.
Oh,
And
okay.
I believe they're called like harmonixers or something like that. That's like the special species of person that can do that, but they can turn into angels or like, and they're all affinities based on the elements and whatnot. So like you can turn into an angel looking monster if you're using the light element fusion, or you can turn into
Hmm.
like a full on fire demon if you turn into like use the fire element. That's kind of one of the big plays of this game. That's why it's kind of cool of like being this gothic era, maybe like in the 30s or 20s or whenever,
Yeah.
and turning into these demons because demons exist. That's kind of the other big pull of what's going on.
So I know that Wild Arms and Shadow Hearts aren't connected story wise, but these trailers launched at the same time. Are they like developed by the same team, or
I
were they?
I think so, but honestly, I didn't know that if
Mm.
that's the case.
I mean,
Like
they're
I
so
don't.
different.
Yeah, they're very very different games, but honestly, they could be made by the same company. I think, is it Activision?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I'm so bad about following who develops. If it's not Square Enix, I'm just kind of like, what?
Yeah, right.
Like,
I'm just
I
scared.
just
It's just like you told me, like, oh, Wild Arms and Shadow Hearts coming out, like new ones, and I'm like, why? Why would they announce those two games at the same time?
right, and
It just
that
seems
was my
weird.
gag too. Like, why are we getting both of these
Hmm.
from these devs? But hey, I'm not
Hey, yeah,
complaining about it. All right, so
let's watch.
this
Mm.
is the one I potentially am a little bit more excited for. So let's go ahead and watch this
Okay.
one. So 1923.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So the other ones, let's pause really quickly. The first one takes place in Japan,
Okay.
and you
This is
do get to
Kudelka or
go
Shadow
to
Hearts?
Kudelka. I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere in England,
Oh, okay. Okay.
ish, and then somewhere in that region. And then the Shadow Hearts 1 is in Japan, and then you go to other countries. Shadow Hearts 2 is
Hmm.
mostly in Europe. And
Okay.
has a lot to do with, I think, Rasputin, um,
Got it.
in that kind of era of history. And I think like World War I is somewhere in there.
Got it.
And then Wild Arms 3 is mostly in United States. Like you go to Alcatraz and a lot of these like big, and Central and South America too for a big part of it.
Okay.
So it's interesting that they chose 1920s New York, but like
Yeah, around the
that's
same era.
cool
Yeah.
because you don't like we don't see games in this time, so
Not
that's super
really. Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
Hmm. Where'd everybody go? What the? Ew, he's gonna step in it.
Gurus.
He could have avoided that. Oh, nice art style. That's kind of cool.
Okay, so
Oh,
we're in
okay.
combat.
Oh, creepy.
Let's
Yeah.
pause
Oh,
for a
there's like a
sec.
person in back there. Yeah.
Okay, so they're stacked. Take a look at their hit points and their magic
Oh
points.
my God, you're right. They have 99. That's great.
We have a turn priority, which I think
Uh-huh.
Wild Arms. I think Shadow Hearts 2 incorporated like a turn order.
Okay.
And that's something that you could kind of like in Final Fantasy X, you could delay enemies or certain actions would slow you down and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
If you look in the bottom left here, really close, it looks like we have normal,
combo, double.
Double, and then D combo.
Yeah, I can't tell what that last one is.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. Maybe
Hmm.
characters can do moves together, sort of like Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, maybe.
And
I
then
mean, it looks like the person you're with, Amelia, I don't know, nurse kind of vibe, because maybe this person here, I don't know if they're in like a asylum or something, but the guy you're fighting has a very, very broken left foot.
yes, he does. Well,
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm curious about this setting.
you do go to asylums in the Shadow Hearts series as well.
Got it.
So that's not really a surprise in terms of like just locales that you'll go to.
Locale,
And then
yeah.
if you already right here, it looks like this dude Matthew can fuse or undergo fusion, so he
Yeah,
probably can turn into
fusion.
demons.
Okay, let's see what
Yeah.
happens. Oh,
Oh,
is this like your wheel, maybe?
sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he just punched him. Oh, and shot him.
Oh,
Wonderful.
that was sick.
I wonder what are you like hitting buttons to do that?
So let's go back
Is it
and
the
check it out one
trackpad, I
more
wonder?
time. So I don't think it's a trackpad. If I had to guess, that's probably like the turn wheel. So you hit X as these things go on.
Yeah,
But let's
yeah,
watch
like a
it one more
QTE.
time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because look, the lightning bolt is moving. I bet
Yeah,
you're right.
matching
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
lightning bolt. So I bet if you miss it, I don't know if the combo stops
As much damage.
yeah,
Yeah.
or if it's as much damage.
That's hilarious. Okay.
Yeah, that was sick.
Apparently that zombie was made of explosives. Um. Ooh. Look at this big boy. Oh,
That's crazy.
I wasn't expecting this. Okay. These look like cinematic looking fights. Oh, here's this transformation you were saying.
Okay, so yeah, he just did a transformation.
Oh, wow.
If you saw that, also, if
Yeah.
that's a random encounter, and that's the kind of thing that happens to introduce a random encounter, that is that is fucking disgusting.
That's pretty
Like,
gross. Yeah.
that is. That would be so cool instead of just
Walking and it just
we're on
happens.
one
Yeah.
side and you're on the other side. Like that is cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that idea too, where they might be running around the battlefield more so, and it's not so defined. Not left versus right, you know?
Yeah.
This is a cool design. Like, keep going. Don't stop. I want to see. Attack, yeah. Same thing. I mean, it looks like very animated, like, fights. It's not like I'm going up and slashing and they're like, oh, I got slashed. And they're, wow, okay.
He just tore him in half.
Raw, with his luchador mask.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I was saying, like, I think that it's kind of cool that it's not just the, like, Final Fantasy VII, for example, you use slash and, like, Cloud goes up and just slashes the enemy and they just, like, see a little strike on them. It's kind of cool that it's, like, you know, the actual aspect of jumping in, the blade goes into his body, you see the blood come out, and, like, he, you know, is actually fighting him.
Yeah, and the fact that he retaliated too
Yeah.
is pretty huge. I'm baffled.
Baffled.
Like, again,
Shook.
I know that this is
Shooketh.
just based on a very small early snippet of a combat system.
Yeah.
But like for me, that is the ultimate hype. Like that more so channeled what Shadow Hearts is to me.
Yeah, why do you say that? Like, as someone that hasn't played, like, why is that?
So Shadow Hearts is that kind of like dark, edgy game. There's like a very edgy brutalness to it, because it's, you know, very close to modern society, because it's demons and whatnot.
It's set in the real world. It's not a fantasy zone, you know.
Yeah,
it's
like
in New York.
it's a parallel universe, but it's a very close parallel universe.
Yeah.
And Shadow Hearts, as the series went further, it got sillier, and it took you out of the elements. Like, one of the characters in the third game is a vampire. Actually, you can get a vampire in all three games, but in the third game, the vampire, depending on like some random thing, she would either be super overweight or a skinny version, and it was just like it would change how her character. all characters have a gimmick, and that was kind of her gimmick. Like, she would do more damage in one form, but she'd be more magical in the other. But it was just kind of silly because she was also like fighting with a giant wand, and she was wearing a tutu. Or, I mean, you'd think I'd love it because one of the characters in the third one is a giant cat, which, like, yes, I was very excited because it was.
But it's taking you out of the element.
But yeah,
is like what you're saying.
It takes you out of the element completely. And the first one wasn't like that, and Kudelka especially wasn't like that. Like, it was super dark,
serious in tone.
And serious in tone. The monsters were things like you legitimately are just nightmare fuel. Like, it was cool, and that's what drew me into Shadow Hearts and Kudelka. And especially when I played Shadow Hearts, not knowing that they were connected until I got to the point where, you know, like, you hear a name drop and then you're just kind of like,
hey,
oh
wait
my
a
God,
minute.
I didn't even know that these were like in the same universe. It's just something that we don't see very much. It's almost like playing a Cthulhu based RPG in a way. It has like that mythos vibe of what's going on right now, especially with games like Mansions of Madness and stuff like that.
For sure. I also wanted to call it the art style was really cool. Like, he had sort of that, not, I wouldn't say cell shading, but that sort of like etched style looked pretty neat.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like new age cell shading. I think that's kind of what
it's giving it, like a little comic booky vibe. And like, I don't know, like, personally, I'd rather a game be a game,
like in
and
the
not
best way
yeah
possible.
Like, look at that. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want it to be like, he looks like realistic person because he's fighting this demon that you know isn't real. So like, use that to your advantage and just make it fit. And this looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm the most hyped for this game. I think more so than the other one, which again, like, if we had to go back and compare, I think I would choose Wild Arms over Shadow Hearts. But I think Penny Blood, even in name alone, I think is just a better name. Like,
yeah, I wonder if it's playing off of like the old Penny Dreadful, like short stories from back in like I think also the 20s. I think it was the same thing. So,
absolutely. I think this has more of an identity, and I think you can get a better idea of what you're getting from this game and trust in it than you would from
the Wild Arms trailer, the
Armed
Fantasia trailer,
because that could go anywhere. But everything seems very dialed in. I think the one thing I don't like is his fusion and how he turns into this kind of like
this knight character,
this Spectre Knight. Yeah, like, he kind of looks like Moon Knight a little bit.
Yeah, he does.
There are a couple of fusions in the games where, you know, like, he'll fuse into something that has a sword, and I don't think it's that big of a deal, but there's just something about this one that is maybe just a little too bright. But maybe this is like the light affinity, you know what I mean? That's really connecting with that.
Interesting. I think if I'm looking at the two of them, so Penny Blood and Armed Fantasia, I feel like they're two like very, very far away games from one another, not just like in what they are, but when the original inspirations came out, but they're really not. Because like, looking at Armed Fantasia, the first trailer we watched, it seems like, oh, that is a retro style RPG, they're making a new one. And looking at Penny Blood, like, it does look a little bit older because it's still turn-based, but I still think like this is a modern game. Like, it gives me more of that, like, that fancier vibe.
Especially with that whole monster juking you back as you're hitting them. Like,
also, you know what? Maybe it's also because it's a more serious tone. Like, I know demons and whatnot, you know, they're not real, not serious, but like, it's more serious than the cartoony aspect of the Armed Fantasia Wild West thing. So I get more of it. This is a mature game for like real gamers, and then the other one is more so this is like your nostalgic game.
And I think that's a really good way to put it too. I think that's why there was such a draw to Shadow Hearts as well, because it did have that mature vibe where like Final Fantasy X at the time, in comparison to the timeline for some of the other like Wild Arms, Shadow Hearts, was a mature game, but I don't think it was mature in the same way that Shadow Hearts was mature.
Yeah, it's mature in that a kid playing Mario 64 isn't going to necessarily like Final Fantasy X, but it's also immature in that Final Fantasy X is nothing like, I don't know, Shadow Hearts, Persona. Like, there's a lot more like seriousness going on, or like maybe it hits more at home.
Persona, like when you play Persona and you have characters that are like shooting themselves in the head to summon their inner persona, there's a lot more of that like dark vibe of everything going on. Like, the world's ending, but it's not apparent that the world is ending. It's very subtle.
Still gotta go to class.
Right. It's got that kind of tone, which I think is not stated enough, because usually in games it's kind of like the world's already ended,
Right.
or here's this big thing that's happening and everyone in the world knows about it, so we're all going to do our best to stop it. It's like, no, this is very behind the scenes. Like, the creatures don't come out in the day, they come out at night. Yeah, so I think it's cool. This is a hype for me. I'm going to back both of them, but I think like this is the one I'm more hopeful for and leaning more toward. How about you? Is this a hype? Is hyper ripe?
This is a hype too. I think it looks cool, but I will say this one, and this is a personal preference, does just seem a little more generic in my mind.
Okay.
But I think that's because I tend to like the more colorful, bright games. I think it's just growing up on those, that's what I gravitated toward. So like if I had to pick one or the other, I would go with Armed Fantasia, because this one just doesn't quite stand out as much to me for like what my taste would be.
Well, wouldn't you say that Armed Fantasia is more generic then?
Well,
like, this
I
is
mean,
just more a matter of taste.
I think it's just taste. Yeah, they're both. I mean, these are both literally like rehashes of old styles, so it's nothing super duper unique. But I think it's my taste is like I go for the more colorful, fun, cartoony. And like I will still enjoy a game like Penny Blood, but I think it was probably, if I want to do a more serious sit down game, I got to pay attention to. Whereas I would expect Armed Fantasia to be a game where I could sit down and play, but not have to really care so much, and maybe do some grinding and get some funny items, and then enjoy my time that way.
Yeah, this is the game that you know where shit's gonna happen, and that's the game where like it's just
shenanigans are gonna happen.
Yeah, shenanigans are gonna happen. Exactly.
Well, thank you for walking me through these, Patrick. First time seeing these, pretty cool.
As
so always,
excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm sure we got like 3-4 years to go. But we do want to hear what your thoughts are too down below. Hit us up with some comments. Let us know what you're thinking. What are you craving? What are you hyping and riping? And yeah, I just want to know what you're thinking about.